G'day guys, it's Mark here. I haven't done anything for a while, so I thought I'd do something I've never done before. Today we're going to do a build video for a new quad, because it's been a while since I had a shiny new thing, but today we've got special goodies. So we are going to be building an ImpulseRC Apex with the new digital DJI FPV system. Let's have a look at the bits. So over here we have ugly ant face goggles, or if you prefer the cow's udder goggles, then your minimalist radio, and over to the components for the quad itself. There's not a lot to do. We've got top and bottom plates, arms, camera plates, center plate for the Apex, which is an important little bit, strap, hardware, standoffs, shiny bits of plastic stuff. Couldn't choose between red and black, so I got one of each. And over here we've got the motor cover things for the arms. I don't like the idea of those race wire things because I don't like soldering and I'm lazy. One lipo pad and motors. BMS Thomas, you know they're good because it's got Thomas on it. These are going to be good. If you look closely, you'll notice that the writing is backwards. They mirrored that image. Oops. So these are a 2000 kV motor. On 5-inch, that means that they'll probably be pretty damn good with 5 and 6S. Eventually this will be a 6-inch, but the 6-inch isn't available yet, so I'm going to be building as a 5-inch. And on 6-inch, of course, you can use those motors with 4S. I mean, you can probably use them as they are with 4S. Just won't have as much punch. Right, ESCs, we're going with FETtec. Felix, X-Kiss Felix, it's his latest baby. That's a 4-in-1, that's a tiny little thing. 35 amps, 6S compatible, very shiny. Over here we have the flight controller, which is a F7 Fusion Heli Nation thing. I have no idea. I just chose a flight controller that was a 20x20 and had a connector that I could easily hook up to this guy, maybe with some pin wiring required, but it should be minimal soldering. I have no idea whether this will be any good or not, but we'll find out. And over here we have the air unit for the DJI and external antennas. The reason for those is so that I can use these guys, which are the little 3D printed mounts for the Apex DJI system that Sean's designed. I've printed one in PLA and a really shitty one in TPU because I can't print TPU yet. Hopefully one of those will fit nicely, and the air unit itself with its antennas that it comes with. And lastly, the final piece of the puzzle is a Pololu 12 volt 1 amp step down regulator. That's needed because this stupid thing is not compatible with 6S, so we need to step down the voltage. If you are just running 4S and things, you don't need this, but I thought, what the hell, let's make it 6S compatible and then we'll have all the bits we need. So I'm going to do a build video, and it's going to be really unofficial and haphazard and slapdash because I have no idea what I'm doing, and there is no official build thing out for this yet, but it's an incredibly simple build, so it should come together very nicely. And this guy is just going to wire straight into all of these things, so we'll cover that in a bit. Alright, better get started. I'm going to speed up bits of it for you to make it less painful to watch, and generally speaking you can pause it and fast forward it and do all those things you do with build videos. I'm also not going to put any music behind it so that you can listen to my dulcet tones while playing your own music. Isn't that nice of me? And all you quad guys have such good taste in music, so you'll be listening to some awesome stuff. Alright, let's get going. Rightio, welcome back. I've spared you the boring video of me taking everything out of its little packets. I hate it when you look at what's called a review video and they spend the first 10 minutes taking things out of little packets and assessing the fact that they're in a little packet. What's the point, guys? Anyway, so we've got a few things to point out here that are quite nice. So if you're not familiar with the Apex frame, the arms are super nice, really thick, to give them a lot of strength this way as well as in the other direction. There's a captured press nut already in there, just going to make the build just a little bit easier. Now, if you're wondering which way these go, the fact that there is no through hole for the motor should be revealing to you. So that's just a recessed thing there. Apart from being a cute feature to tell you which way up it goes, it's also going to keep dirt and gunk out of your motors, which is nice. So we got 4 arms. They're going to be interlinked with this little pivotal piece in the middle here. That's quite important, as we will come to later. Rear bottom plate, front bottom plate, camera plates, and top plate. You've all seen a quad frame before. It's the little details that make the difference. I've decased the BMS Thomas motors, and they're very shiny and very coggy indeed. That's nice, beautiful. They were covered in some sort of sticky BMS web, but I've cleaned them up nicely. Okay, standoffs, hardware. I'm going to run black just because then everything will match. And screws are still in their packets because they're screws, we don't care. This is the FETtec ESC. It's probably not particularly in focus because this is just a GoPro. You can run, and it is recommended to run a cap for 6S, well, mandatory to run a cap for 6S. You can also run 4 different caps if you want, or just the one that they supply you with. And they've given you a bunch of nice little standy off things. Some cable there. This is the little Talon FC. This is quite a tiny little thing with an F7 chip on one side, dual gyro on the other, supposedly set at 90 degrees to each other, which will make it easy to filter out their noisiness. I don't know whether that one's better or the MPU 6000 version is better. Time will tell. Who knows? They've also supplied a whole bunch of little accessory things and grommets and mounty kits, and there's an XT30 in there, and no less than 3 different wiring cables. I will be frankly amazed if one of these plugs directly into this without requiring some rearrangement of the pins, but we'll see. You know, stranger things have happened. It's a Pololu, that's boring. And over here the DJI Air unit, which has 1 cable, not 3. And you have to pay extra if you dare to want another one of those. Thanks, DJI. Those are extra, of course, too. So if you're going to order this kit with the intention of using these antenna mounts, you will need a little MMCX2 RP SMA RP adapters and their little external antennas. Okay, so let's start assembling this thing and then see how it all fits together. Okay, so a couple of things before we start. You'll probably want to take out all of your hardware here and separate everything out in that really anal fashion into screws of the same size, so you know roughly what's going on. And once you've done that, you can start to figure out what they're all for. So these guys are going to be motor screws. These guys are going to be attaching the plates. They've given us 3 different sets of countersunk screws, more about those in a second. These 4 are interesting, and these 8 are interesting too. So what you will notice is that there's not a lot of thread. In fact, there's no thread here. When you traditionally assemble these things with screws, you end up with the thread of the screw actually eating into the carbon, and that's one of the nice features of this frame, because this is going to prevent that slop from developing in the arms. So it's one of those little things that will make quite a difference over time, I suspect. All of these screws as well have a little tiny bit of thread lock on them, which is really nice. One thing to note about the arms, all 4 are identical. There's no left and right. You can't muck that up. This guy goes on the bottom, and you're going to have the 2 screws like that. So that's just going to go straight into the press nut, job done. This is the rear plate, which goes on top. Now you'll notice that only one of these holes lines up. What's going on here? So these 2, if you flip this over, you'll notice these are countersunk, and that's where these guys come into play. So what is going to happen here is those are going to sit beautifully in there flush, and you have a choice of 3 different lengths, and you have a choice of using the inner or the outer holes, depending on whether you're using a 20x20 or a 30x30 flight controller. So that's what that is about. Press nuts. We love press nuts. Those are going to go in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop those in now. You should have a press nut attaching screw in your kit. If you've never done this before, you're going to have a great old time. This is the way to do it without hurting your carbon. So you're going to get that. We're going to get the driver. Just tighten that in until it's captured the nut, and then back it off and do the same for all four. Let's roll film. Where's my bloody driver? Here we are. Now, you see the purists who like to do this gently and by hand insist on using their little hand drivers and things. I'm a little bit sick of that, so I've got this. However, we don't want to completely brutalize our lovely shiny newness, so we'll just go slowly, and using the torque settings we can get this to, might go 3. 3 is generally what I put body nuts in with. There we go, it's in nicely. Save you a lot of time on these things. 65 bucks from Bunnings, and it's actually not a piece of shit, which most of those cheap things used to be. I was quite pleasantly surprised. Okay, I'll do the other 3 off camera. You don't need to see that. Beautiful, beautiful. Right. I'm aiming a GoPro on my head, so I'm not sure if any of this is going to be in shot particularly well, but you'll just have to deal with it later. So, remember, press nuts go on the top. The bottom is the bit with the countersunk parts. Right, arm assembly. So, this one doesn't have a top and a bottom. Your front bottom plate. Every time I say front bottom, I giggle. Those who know what I'm talking about know. So the captured press nut screw is the shorter of these, whatever they're called, fat head screws. Put your cup washer in one side and attach like so. Again, don't make them stupidly tight to begin with. You don't need to do that. So you're going to get the 4 of those, and in the middle you're going to put this little guy, however he goes. You'll figure it out. It'll just come naturally. There we go, that's it. Okay, let's do that. Bam. Okay, that's done. So that was pretty simple. You'll notice that this is really held in here super tight now. That is tighter than the proverbial drone pilot's wallet, and by wallet I mean arse. I can't actually swear. Children might be listening to this, I suppose. I got in trouble once for swearing on the Drone Nationals live stream. Actually, the official complaint said that the announcer was sweating on the love stream. That's a true story. You'll notice that this is slightly lower than these. You might be going, why would they cut it like that? But the reality is that the carbon tolerances can vary a tiny bit, and you want that to be under these, not above it, because that would be bad. Okay, it's the little things. So make sure these little holes line up, and we are going to put on the next plate, I suppose. There's really no official instructions for this yet, so I'm making this up as I go, and some of it may be wrong. This is a pre-release, I mean, it's a production design frame, but yeah, this is all pre-release stuff, and I don't have instructions for this, so if I screw it up, I'll just put something in the description below. Okay, so that seems logical to me now, but first we have to decide which of the 3 flight controller and ESC countersunk screws we are going to put in, because they're going to be locked in tight there once that is on top, and there will be no going back. Of course, if you want to go back, you just have to take off 4 screws. This doesn't fall to pieces on you. Anyone who's changed an Alien PDB will know how much fun that is. It's like you remove the skeleton, the whole thing just goes blue. This will be much nicer to work on. So I'm going to go ahead and have a fiddle and see what fits where, and we'll get back to you after that. See, I'm sparing you all the boring bits where I actually experiment and find stuff out. Okay. Bam. Okay. So, done a little test fitting here. We've got our FETtec there, and we've got our flight controller on top. I'm not sure if they're the right way around. They're probably, one of them at least is. Anyway, the things to note here are we have clearance underneath this, and it's not touching the bottom. Carbon is conductive, kids. If this is your first quad build, you need to know that. The FETtec actually has like these dual sized screw holes, so you just have to press the screw through and it just sort of cuts it through there. And the Talon has these soft mount grommets, so we can be all nice and soft mounted. But that's looking pretty good. The other thing that I've done is attached these standoffs, because we need to make sure that this can clear the top of the frame, which it can quite nicely. There's a bit of room for wires, which is all we need. So that's going to go on there, and that will be beautiful. And this is of course going to go in here, and look at that, like I bought one. She just fits, so that's really sweet. Sean's done a nice job with that. Okay, I think I'm happy with everything there. Worth noting, when you attach the standoffs, the slightly shorter screws, which will be the shortest ones in your kit, for the rear bottom plate and the top plate, those are thinner than the bottom front plate, or front bottom plate as I like to refer to it. And so slightly longer screws there, 1, 2, 1, 2. You'll notice there's 2 more for this. Then that, I would put those on the front, because that's where you're going to smash stuff. Always put long screws in these front standoffs. It's one of those things us guys have been flying for years of doing it. So yes, it's the little things when you're building. You've got to make sure all this stuff is right before you start. Of course, it's nice to have, you know, different size screws, because then that'll save you all of 1 gram. And we know that that makes the difference between flying like, you know, that Strepto guy and Steely Glide Oz guy, whatever. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this stuff off. I'm going to start doing some soldering and preparing the electronics, tin all the pads first, and start actually putting it together, because we pretty much assembled the frame. I mean, that's basically it. Camera plates go in there. Job done. It's a really easy build, one of the most pleasant things I've built in ages. So we'll get back to you after a little bit of soldering. If you're lucky, I might even treat you to a time lapse. Okay, so we're ready to go. On the subject of soldering, 2 things. You need a really good iron. Everybody who's sensible has one of these, the TS100. That's all you need. Temperature adjustable. I've flashed some custom firmware onto this one so that I can read the writing when I'm holding it with my left hand, because all the best people are left-handed. The other thing is, get yourself this, one of these guys, especially if you're a little bit older. This is called a Donegan Optivisor. You can get really cheap versions of this on Amazon, and you can actually get this on Amazon. Hell, I may even put an affiliate link in the fucking description, because why not? I might get $5 over the next 2 years out of Amazon. And that's got to be a good thing, right? So these things will change your life. They're insanely good. And if you can check your work, unless you're 13 years old, you need something like this. You need to be able to see what you're doing. You need to see that those solder joints are good. And so, yes, highly recommended. And available from your friendly Amazon dealer or wherever. Right, that's all. Now I'm going to have to figure out how to put this thing on while I still wear a GoPro on my head. The things we do for YouTube. I think I managed it right. Now, I get to be like a gigantic dork. If someone walked in here right now, they would be like, oh my god, where's that guy? On the subject of solder, before we go into fast forward mode, get yourself good quality solder. Now that's the wrong temperature. It's gone to sleep. Wake up, stupid soldering iron. doing things which have lots of copper in them, I'm going to be up around 410. You want to have a lot of heat going into things quickly and not leave it there. So on the subject of solder, you need a really good leaded solder. If you are building your first quad and you somehow have acquired lead-free solder, throw it in the bin now. I'm serious. Throw it in the bin. It's useless and horrible. There we go. I've even got lights on this thing. Look at that. Okay, so we're just tinning everything. That's what we do. We tin everything and then connect things. I think we're going to fast forward mode. I've had enough to say, and this is boring. Right. Actually, coming out of fast forward mode early, I've got to figure out which pads I actually need to tin on this. And this guy I would like to put caps in and the power lead first before I actually solder it. So I'll do that. I can do that offline, and then I can solder it, and then I can show you, because that's way more interesting than actually watching me do that. So beep beep, we'll get back to you. Okay, so guys, hey, welcome back. No time has passed for you, but some time has passed for me, because I've been spending quite a lot of time figuring out exactly how I'm going to mount all of this stuff, which is something you have to do in advance, otherwise you're just going to get super annoyed as you start with the build process. So my initial plan wasn't going to work. What I'm going to have to do instead is use these lovely little things, which are anyone who's owned a warp quad will know what these are. They're just little aluminium spacers, but you could use plastic ones as well. Aluminium spacer, and then the little tiny spacers that come with the FETtec. That's going to have to sandwich on there. Then I'm going to do the same thing on top, and then I'm going to put the flight controller on there. And flight controllers ended up facing forwards. The FETtec's actually going to have to face backwards, so the power connections are going to face forwards. And the reason for that is that because Smarty Pants here wants to run 6S, I've got to fit a cap somewhere in here, and it just wasn't going to fit in the back with the DJI and the XT60 and all of that. It just wasn't going to happen. So we're going to run the cap in the front, where there's plenty of room, you know, behind the camera here. Tons of room for my power wiring as well. Happy days. And then these wires can run over the top. The DJI system wires will be connecting to the top here. All will be well there. Remember when I said it would be a miracle if one of these things actually connected this to this? They even have the same number of pins. It's amazing. However, I'm going to have to pull one wire and physically wire it in there, because the telemetry requires a TX pin from this, and guess what's wired into this? An RX pin, no TX pin. So yay, I'll have to hardwire one, but the power should come through and the motor wires will come through. I'm going to have to pay some attention when I wire this all up, because this has the KISS motoring order 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that makes much more sense. Yes, thanks Chad. Thanks Felix. You've made everything more standard by making it different. I know it makes more sense. I know that everyone thinks this standard motor running of 1, 2, 3, 4 is pretty stupid, and that is an old stupid multi-wii time cop bloody base flight thing. But it's what we're all used to. So we're going to have to merge the two together. Bottom line is we just test everything with our props off once it's all built, and if I have to pull a pin and move it around or do it in software to change it around, so be it. Just another thing to be aware of when you're doing these builds. Anyway, the only things I'm going to have to connect to the flight controller are one UART and a signal ground and a receiver for the DJI system, and that's going to be it. And that telemetry pin from the ESC. That'll let this pass current readings back to this. which currently aren't displayed on the OSD here. DJI in their wisdom have only seen fit to display voltage. DJI, if you're listening, we need current, we need milliamp hours, we need a configurable OSD. Okay, that is how sensible people monitor their battery usage. It also lets you monitor how old your batteries are getting. So we need voltage and current and milliamp hours, please. That's a simple patch, hopefully. Okay, so now I'm ready to actually start connecting things. That all took me a little while to figure out, but it's worth doing it in advance. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect power wires to this for my XT60. We're not going to use gigantic power wires as traditionally comes with your standard XT60. These are, what are these, 12 gauge. Way too thick, we don't need this. And you'll notice that the small holes on here are a little bit of an indicator about what we actually need. So this is what we're going to use. This is like 16, I think, yep, 16 gauge wire. The silicon coated stuff, of course. So I'm just going to wire that in with the cap and then start wiring bits to other bits, and I guess the motors are going to have to come next as well. So the joy of these is, yeah, nice long wires, look at that, they go all the way in there. Now I might want to put 6-inch arms on this later, so I'm probably going to actually leave these longer and somehow curl them up, tuck them away. It's probably going to be quite ugly, but that means when I do move to 6-inch arms, I am not going to have to extend my motor wires. If you've ever had to extend a motor wire, you'll know that's intensely irritating. So the other option would be to run the race wire, but again, double the soldering, more than double the soldering, quadruple the soldering. So you know what, fuck that. Anyway, I will start building and we'll get back to you when it's come a little bit closer to being a real quad in one piece. Oh, look at that. Here we are again. We've got quite a lot of change now, haven't we? So, where do we get to? We were test fitting things before. It looks like everything's quite happy now. This is pretty much how it's going to get laid out. I've got my motors fitted. We've got our ESC and flight controller almost fully fitted. Motor wires attached, cap attached. You can see in there how it's all going to fit. And I'm test fitting the DJI system, and it all looks pretty neat and Kentucky in there right now. So this is the only ugly bit. That's the 12-volt reg that I'm going to have to wire up with this. But the rest is just going to go in like this. So happy days. It took a while to get to this point, but that's why it's worth taking your time. So we're going to attach the motor wires now, and I'm going to leave an extra amount of room, as I mentioned before. Now Sean's assured me that the extra length of the arms is something like 23 or 26 millimeters. I'll put it in the description. I'm going to leave a couple of extra millimeters on that, and then I'm going to cut them off there, and hopefully when I get my 6-inch arms that'll be enough headroom to extend them out without having to do anything annoying with the wires. The reason I'm going to leave a couple of extra millimeters is because A, sometimes you get things wrong, and B, Sean is a well-known troll, and he might well have told me the exact amount of space I needed to extend them by minus 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters just to mess with me. I think there's about a 50-50 chance that he's trolling me, knowing Sean, so we'll just cover that situation off. You won't need to worry about Mr. Blackmore when you order your fine ImpulseRC gear, because he will look after you. Right, so what I'm going to do now is get snipping and tinning and soldering these guys, and pretty soon we'll have something that resembles a working quad. Cool. Ta-da! And so here we are again. I've got all our motor wires cut and soldered now. It's looking quite hideous in there. I don't know if you can see this too well, but that extra length that I've had to leave is, well, it's a bit of an octopus, but what can you do? It'll save me pain in the future. Started wiring in the Pololu, and I think it's time to wire in the rest of the DJI stuff as well. So you don't need to see that. I'm just going to do that. And the other thing I was going to mention earlier with the DJI camera here is you have to mount it using a couple of these little shims, which I've printed my own here out of TPU. Pretty sure Sean's going to supply these bad boys with the kit. I believe you have to print your own antenna mount though, but the file will be available for that, and that's just gonna fit those SMA things we talked about earlier. Okay, so I will finish off the electronics here, and then who knows, we may even plug it in live and see if smoke comes out. Won't that be exciting? Alright, until then. Alright, here we are. This is getting exciting now. So, everything is in place. This is just sitting here for the moment, but we have our reg wired in. We have our DJI wiring loom complete. XT60 has been fitted. And flight controller has been secured. These wires have also tucked away into the frame quite nicely. Time will tell if that's a good idea or not. Hopefully not too much time, because I would like some 6-inch arms soon. Anyway, it's time to power the bugger up. As you can see, I have my trusty meter here, and we've been doing a little bit of beep, beep, beep testing, making sure that, you know, where we think ground should be is where ground is, and the bits that shouldn't be ground aren't ground, and measuring various resistances. That's my equivalent of a smoke stopper. I like to live dangerously anyway. So let's power some stuff up. Right, transmitter. Ooh, goggles. No power switch. Boo-hoo. Switch lovers. And we got nothing in there at the moment but the DJI logo. Right, let's have a look here and see if smoke comes out. No smoke. Sounds like a happy FETtec noise to me. So that's pretty cool. Oh, and that thing just beeped. So what do we got in here? We have a picture in here. I don't know if you can see that particularly well, but we have a beautiful HD picture. Ooh, that's a bit exciting. Right. So of course, none of these things do anything yet. Haven't even looked at this thing in Betaflight yet. But it's time to do the software side of things now. That's what Mr. PC here is for. Handy things to have next to your quad bench. So I'm going to go and configure some switches, and then we will do some motor checking, and then if everything checks out, I will do the equivalent of the surgeon's closing up and put that in its right place. Oh, I should probably have antennas on this. You'd think DJI would be smart enough not to burn themselves out if you didn't have your antennas attached. I guess we'll find out. One other thing about DJI that I would like to just have a little gripe about, this lovely little wiring loom here. It's not silicon wire, it's old melty PVA wire or whatever it is. Dumb DJI. Get with the program. People have been using silicon wire in this hobby for some time, and for the amount they charge for a spare one of these things, thumbs down DJI, but that's pretty damn cool. Alright, I'm going to switch this off and have a play. Rightio folks, welcome back. I think we are nearly done. This guy is looking pretty sweet. I've got the phone out so I can give you some close-ups now. before I do the final assembly and put the top plate on. If you're wondering what that whirring noise is, this bloody pair of, anyway, over there. So let's zoom in a bit. In the end, you can see how I've laid out the flight controller. I've actually used some press nuts in there just to secure the ESCs, 4-in-1 ESC, and then soft grommets, and then some of those standoffs that came with the flight controller in there. That works pretty well, actually. Over here we've got the cap, and there's not much to say. The camera, it's there, it's done. Back here, Pololu DJI unit now installed. Focus please, and a little antenna array at the back there. So that tucks in. I don't have focus and I don't have a spare finger, but yeah, it tucks in pretty nicely in there, and it's tight, but it all fits. There we go. So what have I been doing? Because this has actually been another hour of work. I did have to remap the motor outputs for the FETtec, and I did that in Betaflight, and I will put the commands, the CLI commands, in the video description below because it's easy that way to do that. Then you can just type the same things if you happen to have this ESC and you're running it with Betaflight. If you happen to have the old Talon here, there's a bug at the moment in its Betaflight target whereby motor number 2 doesn't work and it's mapped to the wrong resource, so you be quiet. This thing has an annoyingly short pay attention to me delay. Anyway, if you remap the motors using the commands that I'm going to put below, that'll get that one working. Otherwise, check out the Heli Nation website where you can buy these things, and they have the commands to get it going there. So let's close her up and then fire her up and see how we go. So one of the nice things about this build was just how insanely easily everything went together, relatively speaking, and that's partially due to the simplicity of the DJI system. There's really not much to it. You just wire the guy in and you've got your video, you've got your control link, if you've got their radio and all that stuff there, and part of it is also the 4-in-1. They do make the build a lot easier and cleaner, and part of it is due to the usual attention to detail from ImpulseRC. And of course most of you guys who know me would know that I am a bit of a, I don't know whether it's a fanboy, a team pilot, a friend of ImpulseRC. I don't know what they call me these days. I fly this stuff because it's good, and because I know those guys. I've been flying with Sean since, you know, day one back in the open pilot days, and he's a smart cookie and he knows all of the things, all the little things that go into making a frame that not just flies well, but is also easy to build and is insanely durable. Like, it's little things like that cross section of that versus that that's been updated. This is, you know, an evolution. There's nothing really new in mini quad design that's, you know, that's come out of the last few years. It's basically been refined to the point where there's not a lot else you can do. So people go, oh, you're just copying this feature, you're just copying that feature, or, you know, all of the usual whinging online. The point is, go fly. I know that these guys know their shit, and I know that the insane amount of attention to detail and the insane amount of QC work that they do is why you end up with a product that is top shelf, world class. and blah 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 blah, wank wank wank. You get the idea. Fanboy stuff aside, it was a nice build, relatively speaking. I'm not a builder. I don't love building. It is somewhat fun, but after you've built like 20 of these things or more, well, some people like it. This is my favorite part of any build though. It's the sticking on of the lipo pad. Somehow to me this sort of symbolizes the finalization of a build, and even the ready to fly vortex mojo you have to stick on the lipo pad, so there we go. She done. That is a pretty thing. You be quiet. Now it's late at night, my car's in the garage, there's not much space here, so I think the most sensible thing to do is to put props on this and maiden it immediately. So what's just happened is I finished the build thinking I was recording. I put some props on thinking I was recording. A little rant about how you don't need nylocks on all 4 of your motors because 2 of them self-tighten, and it's just silly, and it's more convenient to do it this way, and it's like a little extra check that you've got your props on right. And I thought it was recording, and then I maidened it in my garage. Didn't crash, it flew. Thought it was recording. Instead, each time I pressed the button on the GoPro, it helpfully took a picture. Here's the picture of me when I discovered that. Right, so, we can't end a video like that. I'm going to have to actually maiden this thing again. Think of this as a maiden, I don't know. Some sort of secondary maidening video without the suspense of it possibly flying through my garage roof. Oh, that's near enough. Right, there's a picture in there. Yes. This stupid thing's actually recording. Yes. Okay, let's go and maiden our brand new build, because that'll be exciting, and it's a one-off experience you can never have twice, and you be quiet, and it's worth capturing on video. Now I guess that's pointing more or less in the right direction. So this is going to be exactly what happened last time. Yep. That's good. Woo! Off we go. And she's off the ground. Look at that. Beautiful. Lovely. No problems at all. See, I can do the same trick twice. Oh, that was worth all of the extra views, wasn't it? Now, I'm going to finish this video with some flying footage from a proper Maiden with goggles. It does that when you unplug. It's yeah, it's a feature apparently. Yeah, I'll probably have some sort of rant over that video, so I won't bother ranting now, but I'm happy. That's good. She works. Nothing is hot. That was the other thing I was saying after a Maiden. Just check no arms are hot, no bolts are hot, no motors are suspiciously warm. If something's wrong, you will know. It will be noticeable pretty quickly. And that's it. I'll see you in the park. Alrighty then, so here we go. This was literally my first flight with this, and as a result, it's a very conservative flight. I was just finding my feet and, getting a feel for how the machine flew, how it felt to have a giant field of view in HD in my goggles. All pretty novel stuff, just in my little test track down by the river. The reason that I didn't fly loads of packs and then show off some amazing flying after getting used to the system was I had a very minor crash on my second flight, and the flight controller popped and it's dead. So That's just a bit of bad luck, I suspect. We'll have to replace that and life goes on. But yeah, impressions with this system. You can see the pictures here. I've got the full 1080 recording at the back, which has been scaled up to the 2.7K for the video here, but the 720 in the corner is the actual goggle recording file, and that's unedited, unscaled, if you're viewing this at the right res, which you probably aren't. And yeah, you can see pretty damn nice quality. I'll still fly this with a GoPro because I want that super view, and the GoPro is basically better at doing that sort of stuff and does 4K and blah blah blah. But I mean, for just tooling around the park, making a few recordings, this is amazing. You got a little bit of prop in shot, a little bit of frame in shot, but what can you do? That's just a byproduct of the location of the camera itself. So the bigger question is this going to kill analog? Is this going to kill Fat Shark and whatnot? It remains to be seen what the market's going to do. The Bite Frost system from Fat Shark is due out at some stage, and I will be very keen to have a go with that one too, because I've flown a test prototype of it last year with Chad. We both had a little look-see when Greg came and visited us, and we were both really impressed. The way it breaks up over distance is very much like analog, so the picture broke up in a really friendly, pilot-friendly way and came back in a really pilot-friendly way, and there's no variable latency. So for your racing, I think it's definitely going to be the go. For everyday flying, bit of freestyle, we'll have to wait and see. So it's impossible to wax lyrical about these things until you actually have the thing. I hate it when people start getting on their little soapbox on YouTube or on social media and like they know everything about a system which isn't even out yet. Just go fly, guys, have fun. A little shot of Brisbane for you. This is my little test track. I don't think I've ever published a video from here before, but I'm reasonably used to where I can go and where I can't go. But what I'm really keen to do, and I've already done in this video, is gone a couple of places where I probably wouldn't have gone with analog. So I'm keen to sort of push the limits and see whether I can go beyond line of sight, how far I can go beyond line of sight, what the latency does, all that sort of stuff with the DJI system. It's going to be pretty cool. And this whole flight I had absolutely zero issues. I'm obviously not pushing it much for range, but yeah, I mean it all just worked. It was beautiful. So tick of approval for now. As far as the Apex goes and how it flies and the FETtec and all that stuff, I mean the thing felt damn crisp, and you can hear the sound of the motors has a particularly nice tone to it. I don't know if that's just an artifact of the mic in the DJI system and where it's placed and how it's getting some transmission from the frame, or whether these ESCs actually have that sort of musical tone to them, but yeah, it's quite interesting to note. So all up, happy chat. Good luck with your builds. Put some comments down below. If you really love me and want to feed me a couple of cents here and there, you can click on my Selly Outie affiliate links, especially the DJI one. That will actually give me some real money. If you want to buy a DJI system and you click on that link and do it, then they send me like $70 or something eventually. Hope you enjoyed. Feel free to sub if you have no idea who I am, and if not, we'll see you in the park. Thanks for watching. Ciao guys.